It is so hot
The lights
today.
are on. Traffic signals blink through a humid summer afternoon. Air conditioners hum behind glass. Your phone has full bars. And yet, the city is stuck. A card payment spins on processing for too long. A pharmacy can't confirm a prescription that should take 5 seconds. A shipping terminal freezes mid-scan. One container, one barcode, one gate that won't lift. People don't panic at first. They don't even call it a crisis. They call it what modern people always call invisible trouble. Systems are slow today. But there's a difference between slow and wrong. Because when a system is slow, you wait. When a system is wrong, you can't trust the answer even when it arrives.
Another register open?
In a hospital, a nurse taps a workstation and watches a patient record refuse to load. In an office, someone tries to log in again and again, convinced the password is the problem. At a warehouse, a manager tells drivers to hold in the lot, just for an hour, until the scanners come back. And above it all, the skyline looks normal. That's the terrifying part. This disaster doesn't announce itself with darkness. It announces itself with friction. Tiny delays that multiply across millions of people. Now, rewind. Because this story doesn't begin with a hacker in a hoodie. It begins the way most modern failures begin. With something routine. An update, a login, a trusted tool doing what it's done 1,000 times before. No alarms, no explosions, no warning sirens. Just a moment where the invisible machinery of daily life accepts something it shouldn't. And then, quietly, machines across a network receive the same message. At first, it looks like IT problems. A few offices restart computers. Help desks light up. People joke about it. Someone says the internet is acting weird. Then a screen appears in one place, then two, then everywhere. A reboot, a strange error, a timer that wasn't there before. In real history, this incident hits hard, and the world contains it. But in this episode, we flip one variable. What if containment fails? What if recovery keeps breaking, not for days, but for 30 days? Because in modern life, recovery isn't one repair. Recovery is 1,000 systems trying to agree on what's true again. And if that agreement collapses, the lights can stay on, and the world can still stop.
We are following breaking news regarding a massive
In the real world, the event we're rewriting is known as NotPetya. Most people heard the word and assumed it was ransomware, a digital mugging where criminals lock your files and demand payment. But NotPetya was something colder. It didn't want money, it wanted damage. It wore the mask of ransomware, but it behaved like a wiper, software designed to destroy, not negotiate. That distinction matters because it changes how people respond. When companies think it's ransomware, they focus on paying, restoring, moving on. When it's a wiper, payment doesn't fix anything because there's nothing to unlock. Now here's the part most videos get wrong. NotPetya didn't spread because one person clicked one bad email and the world magically collapsed. It spread because modern organizations are built like neighborhoods with shared keys. In a company network, one credential, one set of permissions can open doors you didn't know existed. A single machine can have trusted connections to dozens more. And once the software is inside, it doesn't need to knock politely. It moves automatically, fast, and without asking. Think of it like this. A fire in one apartment is dangerous. A fire in the stairwell is a disaster, because the stairwell connects every floor. NotPetya found the stairwells. It used the connections companies rely on every day. Shared logins, internal tools, machines that talk to machines because efficiency demands it. So the infection doesn't feel like an attack at first. It feels like a chain reaction. A reboot here, a locked screen there. Then entire departments go dark all at once. Not from power loss, but from erased digital memory. And in real history, the blast radius was massive. Major global firms lost the ability to ship, invoice, schedule, and verify. Ports and logistics companies were disrupted. Manufacturing slowed. Hospitals in some areas had to revert to paper processes. Losses reached into the billions. That's real history. Now step into our alternate reality. In our version, the United States doesn't just experience disruption, it experiences persistence. Because the scariest part isn't the initial infection. The scariest part is what comes after. When you try to restore, and the restore isn't clean. When you bring systems back online, and they can't trust their own records. When companies discover a brutal truth, you can rebuild machines in days, but you can't rebuild trust in weeks unless you have time, clarity, and proof. And in this episode, you don't.
I really don't have time for this today.
Day one is denial. In offices, managers send the same message. Restart your machine. Submit a ticket. Work around it. Executives tell themselves the comforting story. It's an IT problem. It stays in the IT department. And by morning, the grown-ups will fix it. That's how modern organizations cope with invisible risk. They put it in a box and label it technical. But NotPetya doesn't stay in the box. Because American business doesn't run on paper anymore. It runs on verification. A warehouse doesn't ship because someone feels sure. It ships because a system confirms. Order, destination, inventory, billing, approved. So when those confirmations disappear, the physical world hesitates. On day two, the first visible pain appears where America is most fragile: movement. At a port terminal, a driver pulls up to a gate like they've done 100 times. A container gets scanned. The system pauses. At first, it looks like a small delay. The worker tries again. Still nothing. Then the terminal does what it was built to do in uncertainty. It stops risk. No confirmation, no release. No release, no trucks. No trucks, no flow. And because the port is a machine, one stuck gear spreads backward fast. Trucks line up, yards fill, containers stack like a traffic jam made of steel. Inside the logistics office, they pull out the old way: clipboards, printed manifests, phone calls. But here's what people forget about the old way. The old way worked because the old world moved slower. A modern US port pushes massive volume every day. Clipboards can't keep up with that volume without mistakes. And mistakes in logistics aren't small mistakes. A medical shipment in the wrong place is a week of delay. A part missing from a factory line is thousands of dollars per minute. A refrigerated shipment that sits too long becomes garbage. By day three, the country doesn't see empty shelves yet. It sees something worse: mismatch. One store looks normal. Another store, 2 miles away, has gaps in specific products. Pharmacies still have most medications, but one shelf is suddenly bare. Auto shops still have tires, but a critical brake component is backordered with no clear date. It's not an apocalypse. It's the early stage failure pattern of modern life. Everything is still there, just not where it's supposed to be. And that's when the public begins to sense a truth companies already know. When systems lose memory, the world doesn't explode, it stalls. By day four, the problem stops being business. It becomes personal. Because in the United States, healthcare is not one system. It's a web of systems: records, labs, imaging, pharmacies, billing, insurance, identity. A patient doesn't move through a hospital like a person. They move like a packet of information. Confirm the name. Confirm the allergy list. Confirm the medication history. Confirm the insurance. Confirm the order. Confirm the lab result. confirm the discharge plan.
Is anyone else having trouble
When
with
those
this?
confirmations fail,
won't load the
a
patient
hospital
history.
doesn't shut down. It slows to a different century. A nurse begins a shift and does what every nurse does now. They open the electronic chart to see who's who, what's due, what changed overnight. But the chart won't load. Not slow, not in 5 minutes. It won't load. So the unit does what it has to do to stay safe. It rebuilds reality by hand. Whiteboards come back. Printed lists come back. Paper wristbands, handwritten labels, manual medication logs. Phones ring more than they should because the computer used to carry the coordination. Now humans have to carry it. A lab tech writes identifiers by hand and double checks them because one mismatch isn't a glitch, it's a patient. A doctor tries to confirm an allergy before prescribing. The information is incomplete. So the doctor asks the patient again and again because memory has become a risk. In the pharmacy, the system that used to verify doses and interactions is unavailable or unreliable. So pharmacists add layers of manual checks because in medicine, you don't guess. The building still has power. The ventilators still work. The lights still glow. But the hospital moves like it's underwater. And here's why this matters in our alternate reality. A hospital can survive a day of paper. A week is harder. But as days stretch toward weeks, something changes. Paper doesn't synchronize. One update in one place doesn't automatically become true everywhere else. So the hospital starts creating little islands of truth, departments that know their own situation but can't easily share it, which means discharges take longer, transfers take longer, appointments get postponed, non-urgent procedures get rescheduled. Not because doctors stop working, but because coordination is the hidden engine of modern care. By day 7, emergency rooms begin to feel the pressure, not with a dramatic surge, with backlog, the quiet killer of any system. And this is the moment America starts to understand. A cyber event can be a health event, even if no one gets hacked at the bedside. Because in modern life, the bedside is connected to everything else. By week 2, America learns the real name of this disaster. Not malware, not a hack, not IT issues. It's a trust failure. Because most of modern life is not powered by electricity. It's powered by agreement. Agreement that a payment is real. Agreement that a shipment is the shipment it claims to be. Agreement that a record hasn't been altered. Agreement that the person standing in front of you is who they say they are. When those agreements break, the country doesn't collapse like a movie. It hesitates. And hesitation at scale is a weapon. In banking, the first changes are subtle. Transfers take longer. Approvals slow down. Pending becomes a common word again. Not because banks are out of money, but because banks are allergic to uncertainty. If a system can't guarantee that a transaction record is intact, the safest option is delay. So, risk departments tighten rules, manual reviews spike, fraud filters become stricter, and now the problem spreads into ordinary life. Payroll is the perfect example. Most Americans don't experience the economy as charts, they experience it as a deposit. A small company runs payroll on Friday, and an error appears. Not a dramatic failure, just a processing delay that doesn't clear. The owner calls the processor. The processor says, "We're verifying." Verifying what? Everything. Because if identity systems are unstable, if internal records might be corrupted, then who can prove what was owed, what was approved, what was sent? So businesses fall back to the oldest currency in a modern nation: paper. Some employers write checks. Others pay cash for a week and promise to reconcile later. And the moment payroll becomes improvisation, people feel it in their bodies. Rent doesn't wait for verification. Car payments don't pause because an IT department is rebuilding servers. Now, add insurance. Healthcare isn't just charts and nurses. It's claims, eligibility checks, authorizations, billing codes. In week
very
2,
sorry about
clinics
that.
start
Let me
hearing
write
a
this
sentence
down.
that makes every
Can you
receptionist
please repeat the
tense.
account number?
Try again later. Eligibility
I'm so
verification
sorry about the
hangs.
delay. Let me check the
Pre-approvals
schedule again,
stall.
but it looks like the
Claims
doctor is
queues
running
thicken.
behind.
So clinics delay non-urgent visits, not because the doctor is unavailable, but because the system that confirms this will be paid is unreliable.
Right here.
In some places, that becomes pay up front. In others, it becomes reschedule. And this is how a cyber event turns into a social event, not by shutting off lights, but by slowing the invisible promises that keep society moving. Week 2 is when people start printing things again. Bank statements, insurance cards, medical summaries, mortgage documents, not because everyone becomes paranoid, but because paper feels like proof when systems feel like rumors. And when enough people stop trusting invisible records, you can see the shift in behavior. A little more cash withdrawn, a little more fuel kept above half a tank, a little more pantry stocked than usual. Not panic, preparation. But in a nation of hundreds of millions, a little more becomes the event. Fuel is where the public finally touches the edge of the machine. Not because America runs out of fuel overnight, but because fuel is not a product. Fuel is a schedule. It's dispatch, routing, billing, verification, timing. A refinery can be fine, and a pipeline can be fine, and a city can still feel shortages if the coordination layer goes soft. In week 2, small failures start appearing at the edges. A station's card readers work, then don't. A delivery arrives late, not by hours, but by days. A manager tells drivers, "We're waiting for confirmation." Confirmation of what? That the delivery is logged? That the invoice will be recognized? That the next station won't reject the same truck for the same reason? So the system does what it always does in uncertainty. It slows. And Americans notice fuel delays faster than they notice anything else, because fuel is movement, and movement is freedom. The first behavioral change isn't panic, it's a pattern. People top off sooner, they fill the second car, they keep the tank above half, they withdraw a little extra cash, they buy an extra case of water, they add a few things to the pantry, just in case. And if you're one person, that's nothing. But in a nation this large, it becomes arithmetic. If 10 million drivers decide to keep an extra 5 gallons, that's 50 million gallons suddenly pulled forward in time. The country didn't lose fuel, it lost timing. And timing is what keeps supply chains smooth. Now you start seeing the real-world symptoms that look like shortages, but are actually demand arriving early. Stations put up temporary signs, limits per vehicle, cash preferred, no refunds. The lines appear, controlled, quiet, irritated, sunburned. And behind the scenes, the same trust failure is hardening. A distributor won't send a truck without proof it will be logged correctly. A station won't accept a delivery without proof it can reconcile the payment. Everyone becomes more cautious because everyone is more exposed. This is the moment our alternate reality turns the corner. Because the longer this lasts, the more society shifts from normal behavior to risk behavior. People start planning routes differently. They avoid low tank situations. They skip trips that can wait. Businesses adjust hours. Deliveries get consolidated. Nothing dramatic happens on television, but in daily life you can feel it, the friction. And once friction becomes routine, it spreads. More cash-only signs, more handwritten notes, more manual logs, more people doing the work the system used to do, and doing it slower because humans aren't built for that scale. Week 3 isn't the week the country collapses. It's the week the country learns that modern life is not fragile because it's weak. It's fragile because it's synchronized. And once synchronization breaks, even small choices become national events. By week 3, the country stops asking, when will it be fixed? And starts asking a more dangerous question. What if this is the new normal? Because America is still standing. Stores are open, highways are full, the skyline still glows. But underneath the surface, the economy is developing a limp. Not a collapse, a hesitation. A port terminal that loses 2 days doesn't just lose 2 days, it loses position. Schedules get rewritten, containers miss connections, warehouses receive the wrong mix of inventory. Manufacturers wait on a single missing part while everything else sits useless beside it. This is the supply chain truth nobody sees. A factory doesn't need most of its parts. It needs the one part that completes the system. And when verification is unreliable, companies become conservative. They stop assuming. They start checking. A shipment arrives and the receiver doesn't just sign. They inspect. They photograph. They call. They wait for secondary confirmation. Multiply that across thousands of businesses, and the national speed drops. Now the labor side feels it too. When payroll becomes inconsistent, not everywhere, but often enough, people change behavior. They hold on to cash. They delay purchases. They stop spending on anything that isn't essential. Not because they're in a recession, because uncertainty feels like a trap. And then comes the deepest fear of a trust failure: identity. If records can be corrupted, how do you prove who you are? Most of the time, you don't think about identity systems. They're invisible. Until a clinic can't pull your file. Until a bank can't quickly confirm your account history. Until a government office can't verify a record in the usual way. So people start building personal backups of themselves. They print pay stubs. They print insurance cards. They screenshot balances. They save PDFs of statements. They photocopy IDs. Some do it calmly. Some do it compulsively. Not because society is collapsing, because society is losing its shared memory. And shared memory is what lets strangers cooperate. When memory becomes unreliable, cooperation becomes expensive. Businesses add manual steps. Manual steps add time. Time adds cost. Cost doesn't explode all at once. It leaks into everything. Late fees, rush shipping, overtime, waste, spoilage. And by the end of week 3, you can see the shadow of a second problem: rumor. When systems can't confirm reality fast enough, people fill the gap with stories. A viral post says a certain bank is down. A friend says a certain pharmacy can't get meds. A neighbor says fuel deliveries are stopping. Most of it isn't fully true, but in a trust failure, partial truth is enough to move crowds. That's why week 3 is the point of no return in our alternate reality. Not because the country falls, because the country changes. It becomes a place where people keep paper copies again, where businesses demand extra proof, where cash preferred becomes normal, where the lights stay on, but trust becomes something you have to earn every day.
It's a beautiful evening, isn't it?
Week 4 is when the crisis becomes visible without needing headlines. From far away, America still looks normal, but up close, the country has changed texture. You see it on glass doors first, handwritten notes taped at eye level. System unavailable. Cash only. Processing delayed. Not dramatic warnings, just little admissions that the invisible machine is still limping. You see it in the lines. Not riots, not stampedes. Lines that form because everything takes longer now. A pharmacy window that used to clear prescriptions quickly now moves at half speed because verification is manual, and manual means pauses. A clinic reception desk asks for the same information twice because they no longer trust that yesterday's entry is still correct today. A bank teller asks for additional identification, not because you look suspicious, but because the system's confidence is low and humans are filling the gap. You see it in workarounds that become permanent. Delivery drivers carry printed route sheets again. Warehouse managers keep binders of known good contacts. Small businesses keep a cash drawer like it's 1995. Even large institutions begin to behave like small ones, because scale becomes dangerous when records are uncertain. And here's the most unsettling part. The country doesn't feel like it's in a disaster movie. It feels like it's in a slow, collective negotiation with reality. A negotiation that costs time. Time off work, time in traffic, time on hold, time in waiting rooms, time in customer service loops where the answer is always, "We're still verifying." Meanwhile, the secondary costs keep accumulating. Food spoilage from delayed deliveries, overtime from manual processing, waste from duplicated orders because nobody is sure what actually shipped. And the public adapts in the only way humans can adapt to uncertainty. They simplify. They buy fewer things. They take fewer trips. They choose familiar brands and familiar stores because familiarity feels like safety. They keep their tank above half. They keep cash on hand. This is what quiet panic looks like in a modern nation. Not screaming, shrinking. A slow narrowing of behavior toward what feels controllable. And in the background, trust begins to reorganize. People trust local stores more than distant systems. They trust paper more than screens. They trust a human voice more than an automated confirmation. For 30 days, the United States has lived in a world where the lights stayed on, but certainty was rationed. And by the end of week 4, America is not broken, but it is permanently aware of something it used to ignore. Modern life isn't just built on electricity, it's built on coordination. And coordination can fail without a single streetlight going out. So how does a nation recover from this? Not with one heroic patch, not with one genius at a keyboard, not with a dramatic power restored moment. The fix is slower than the attack, because attacks only need to break the surface. Recovery has to rebuild the foundation. In week 4, the smartest organizations stop chasing speed and start chasing certainty. They do 4 things again and again until the system can breathe. First, isolation. They cut networks into smaller pieces. They disconnect parts of the system that used to be convenient, because convenience is how the infection moved. Offices that once shared access freely now become separate islands on purpose. Remote connections get restricted. Old, trusted paths are treated like liabilities. Second, clean rebuilding. They don't repair infected machines. They wipe them. They rebuild them from known clean images. In some places, that's easy. In others, it's a nightmare, because not every organization actually has clean, current backups. And backups aren't magic. A backup is only valuable if you can prove it wasn't contaminated, and only useful if you can restore it fast enough to matter. Third, verification. This is the part nobody wants to talk about because it's boring and expensive. Companies don't just restore systems, they recheck their own memory. They compare records, they audit logs, they validate inventories, they reissue credentials, they assume nothing. Because the danger now isn't just the malware returns. The danger is corrupted truth. A shipment marked delivered when it wasn't, a payment recorded twice, a patient record updated incorrectly, a credential that looks valid but isn't. So recovery becomes a process of proof, and proof is slow. Fourth, staged reconnection. Once pieces are clean, they reconnect them carefully, not all at once, because reconnecting too fast spreads instability. It's like restarting a power grid. You don't flip every switch and pray. You bring systems up in stages, confirm stability, then expand. And even when the technical recovery is mostly done, the social recovery lingers. Because after 30 days of uncertainty, everyone has learned new habits. Businesses keep paper processes just in case. Hospitals build manual checklists that never disappear. Ports add extra verification steps. Banks hold transactions longer. The country returns to normal, but normal now includes friction. That's the hidden cost of a trust failure. Even after the machines are repaired, society doesn't fully return to the old speed. Because speed requires confidence, and confidence takes longer than code. 30 days into this alternate reality, one lesson becomes obvious. You don't survive a trust failure the way you survive a blackout. In a blackout, the problem is energy. In a trust failure, the problem is coordination. So, if you want to be ready for a month where the lights stay on but systems can't agree on what's true, you need a different playbook. Here are the 5 rules. Not theory, not prepper fantasy, just the minimum that keeps your life moving when verification collapses. Rule 1. Proof. In a trust failure, your first problem isn't food, it's identity. When systems are unstable, people start demanding proof everywhere. Banks, clinics, landlords, employers, shipping counters, insurance desks. So you keep a small, offline proof kit. A paper copy of your ID information. A paper copy of insurance details. Key account numbers, not passwords. Not a list of secrets, just identifiers. A printed emergency contact list. A basic medical summary, allergies, current meds, and one emergency contact. Not because you're paranoid, because when screens can't confirm you quickly, paper buys you time.
Thank you.
Rule 2. Cash. Not a fortune, not a mattress full of money, just enough for a week of normal life if digital payments stall. Because in this kind of event, stores don't close first, they shift. Card readers fail intermittently, networks time out. Cash preferred becomes cash only without warning. Cash keeps transactions simple when the system becomes complicated. Rule 3. Fuel plus timing. In this episode, fuel didn't disappear, timing did. So the rule isn't hoard gas. The rule is don't live at the edge of empty. Keep your tank above half when things feel unstable. Not forever, just when the system is showing friction. Because if distribution gets delayed and everyone tops off at once, lines form. And lines steal time. And time becomes the currency of the month. Fuel is freedom, but in a trust failure, fuel is also predictability. Rule 4. Information without the cloud. When systems go unstable, rumors become faster than facts. So you need at least one source of information that doesn't depend on the same fragile paths as everything else. A battery radio, a local news broadcast, a trusted local contact chain, people you can actually call. And if you rely on digital maps or digital calendars, keep a simple offline backup. Addresses you need, routes you drive, dates that matter. Because in a trust failure, the most dangerous moment isn't when you lack information. It's when you can't tell what's real. Rule 5. Health plus continuity. This is the rule most people miss. Hospitals keep working, clinics stay open, but everything moves slower when verification is manual. So you protect continuity. If you take essential medication, keep a modest buffer if you can, nothing extreme. Know the generic name. Know the dosage. Have one printed summary. If you have a chronic condition, keep the basics visible and simple. Because during a month like this, the healthcare system is still there, but it's operating with friction, and friction turns routine into delay. These 5 rules don't turn you into a bunker. They turn you into someone who can keep moving when the modern world loses synchronization. Because the truth is, we didn't build a civilization that's fragile because it's weak. We built a civilization that's fragile because it's coordinated. And in a trust failure, survival isn't about fear. It's about reducing your dependence on invisible confirmations, just enough to stay stable until the system catches up. 30 days later, the machines come back. The ports move again. The terminals approve again. Hospitals see charts load again. A card swipe returns to being a thoughtless gesture. And for a moment, the country exhales. Because this disaster didn't look like a disaster. It looked like waiting. But the lesson remains. The past had empires made of stone. The present has empires made of systems. Electricity, logistics, healthcare,
Yes, that would be great.
payments,
Thank you.
data. They're invisible until they fail. NotPetya wasn't terrifying because it was clever. It was terrifying because it attacked coordination itself. And when coordination collapses, even a strong country slows down. So here's the question this alternate reality leaves behind. If 30 days of broken trust can reshape daily life, what happens when the thing that carries trust disappears entirely? Next episode, we enter a failure where the lights stay on, but the internet disappears. No feeds, no maps, no authentication, no cloud. The day the world goes silent. Click the video on screen, subscribe, because in alternate realities, we don't watch disasters from a distance, we survive them.